And I'm hearing in five, four, three, two, one. This is Ted Hicks from Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show, latenightparents.com. Got my boy Danny Thompson in the queue. Well, not even in the queue. He's live. So I'm
Yes.
really excited about that. It's very rarely that we get together. I mean, we talk more offline. Danny, how you doing?
You know what? I can officially say I'm exhausted. Like I was telling somebody earlier, my guy Ryan Jones earlier today, I'm like, yo, this is the bit that this is arguably one of the 2 or 3 busiest days for me of the entire year. The trade deadline is extremely, extremely busy, and then on top of that, we have the All-Star draft right after that, and it's you lead up to this moment, and now that it's over, you get a chance to breathe and get ready to enjoy the All-Star game next weekend.
Yeah, there's a lot leading up to it. Um, there's a lot of trades made. It's Fast and Furious. The trade frenzy was there, but it seemed like everything circled around two players: Ben Simmons, James Harden. I mean, and a close third was Russell Westbrook or Russell Westbrook. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
let's just jump right into it. What's your thoughts? Who won? Who lost? Nets, Sixers, Sixers going in, pushing in every last bit of chips they actually have. Danny, how do you call it?
Well, I would say this. In some cases, the Sixers actually had a chance to. I think the Sixers won a lot of things in this trade. They won the fact they didn't trade Tyrese Maxey. They won the fact that they kept Matisse Thybulle both on the roster as they make their playoff push. Now, to go back to, Ted, one of our favorite movies, The Avengers, and when it came to Thanos, to get James Harden, what did it cost you? Well, it cost you
Everything.
almost everything else on the roster at this point.
Everything.
You know, Seth Curry, Seth Curry is arguably your best shooter on the roster. The one guy on the team that can automatically hit 40% of the 3-point line. He's a guy when he shoots the basketball, you think it can go in almost every single time. And he's not one of those guys that shoots 50 times a game. He's a guy that, as far as accurate he is, his shot selection is brilliant. And he fit perfectly in the Sixers offense. Andre Drummond, who they got off the bargain basement bin, every time Embiid has been out, has been a double guy. Can give you 10 rebounds a game, and he's been solid in the minutes he's played. And really, the thing that's the telling part is the Nets got 2 first-round picks in the trade. It was funny for months that Daryl Morey wanted multiple first rounders for Ben Simmons. He ended up giving up 2 first-round picks just to get rid of Ben Simmons. So from the Sixers' perspective, it is kind of a win-lose situation. Harden has opted in for next season. So the Sixers have this year and next year before paying James Harden the most expensive contract in the history of the NBA. So they have about 18 months to figure out whether James Harden's going to work next to Joel Embiid. So
So
if you take a look at the Sixers' output and what they gave up, it's a win and a loss. So I look at it. If I have to give it a letter grade, Ted, I would give it a B plus. It could have been worse, but it wasn't as bad because Ted, that lineup of when healthy of Maxey, Harden, Harris, Embiid, and Matisse Thybulle in the playoff series, Ted, you almost hit every checkbox in a playoff series with those being your 5.
so tell me this. There was a lot of talk about Tobias Harris. Um I was under the impression Tobias Harris had like a semi, friendly contract. I thought it was like, similar to the gentleman that I won't name, but he plays for the New York Knicks. He was, I don't know, his stock went from super high to super low. Um, but I thought it was around like the $120 million mark. But I think you brought it to my attention,
That's
or
probably
one of
what's
my other
left of the
colleagues,
contract.
to say it was 5 for 180. What were they thinking about?
not only just 5.8, it's a 5 and 180 escalating contract. So that number gets higher and higher each year till he gets, I think, almost 40 million his last year. Tobias Harris, he's in the third year of a 5-year, $180 million contract that should have been in Jimmy Butler's hands, but not his. No offense to Tobias Harris, but when you're paying somebody that type of money and he's your third option, that's been a trigger point, for Sixers fans for years. But the good news is now that the Sixers have acquired James Harden and acquired his bird rights and acquired the fact that he opted in, they don't have to trade Tobias Harris. It's just that the front office is going to pay an extremely large luxury tax even further now because they're adding on $12 million of James Harden's salary for next season.
So I want to say timeout for 1 second, Danny. First things first. Are you really getting the feeling? So Harden has a $47.5 million contract for next season.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think he opts out of that and ties himself up or signs an extension and gets him to that magical number of the richest contract?
No, he actually opted in today. Right after the trade, he opted in for next season. So
Okay.
I think they're going to work this thing out, and it gives James Harden the flexibility. If it doesn't work out next summer, not this summer, but next summer, he can walk away. If he wins the championship, hey, listen, then the $270 million, a 5-year, $270 million contract that he's been seeking will probably be worked out pretty soon after that.
Wow. So is it safe to say Karis LeVert, what's the other stud who
Jared
got
Allen.
traded to Cleveland? Jared Allen were traded for Seth Curry and Ben Simmons and Andre Drummond and some draft picks.
I mean,
is it safe to say that?
Yeah, you can safely say that. And the thing is, you still win in that situation, though.
Okay.
Because as we talk about the Sixers side, let's look at things from the Nets side. So the Nets gave James Harden to get Paul Millsap. And I mentioned with the Sixers, Paul Millsap's going to be another defensive big with long arms that could actually help out. He's not the Paul Millsap that was in Atlanta, when he was All-Star Paul Millsap, but he still has some. He still has a little bit of tread left on the tires. Not too much tread, but he has enough to give you the things that you need. But let's look at the trade from the Nets perspective. All right, yes, James Harden's gone. Your primary scorer when there's no Kevin Durant and no Kyrie Irving is gone. What did you add in the deal? Seth Curry is a knockdown shooter. They missed that because Joe Harris has missed, a good part of the season. Hopefully he's back in time for the playoffs. So Curry now fits in the Joe Harris spot on the roster. Andre Drummond helps out in the center position because, LaMarcus Aldridge has been kind of dealing with a little bit of an injury. And Aldridge, with a combination of Blake Griffin and a combination of Andre Drummond as your three bigs in that rotation, none of them play 30 minutes, but you'll need none of them to play 30 minutes. It's another body because Blake Griffin's body can go so far, and LaMarcus Aldridge is getting older. So it's just another body that you have on the roster. All right, I think it's a solid rebounding fit. The real question is, what does Ben Simmons give you? Well, the good news is Ben Simmons will be traveling with the team this weekend to Miami.
Wow.
Rich Paul said Ben had spoke with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and had very, very positive discussions and meetings with those guys today. And they're trying to make sure he's on track to return to the team this season. That is huge. That he's going to make the steps to be back. Now, what does this mean for the Nets? Well, the good news in the state of New York is that the mask mandate's gone for businesses, but the bad news is it does not affect New York City. So Kyrie Irving is still under the mandate until the mayor Eric Adams decides to change his mind.
And as of today, with the New York Daily News, he's not budging.
Well, Ted, listen, there is going to be pressure from all sides of this, so we'll see. But the good news is Kevin Durant didn't mention anything about his return at the All-Star draft tonight, so we don't know when he's coming back. Hopefully it'll be soon. There's no timetable set. But what Ben Simmons brings to the table is if the Nets get in the playoff series, Ben Simmons can guard anybody on the court. He is he's one of the three best lockdown defenders in the entire NBA. And when Kyrie Irving's on the court, if Ben Simmons' playmaking ability makes Kyrie Irving even more dangerous. Now, the real question we all want to see is, what does Ben Simmons give you when he gets on the court? I'm just going to say now, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are gaslighters, and what I mean that is, listen, we can see Ben Simmons in the first game at Barclays launching 3-pointers that go in that we see in the tapes all summer. Ted, if Ben Simmons hits 2 threes in the first quarter of his first game at Barclays, Ted, the
In
internet will
fuego.
melt.
In fuego.
And Fuego would be the worst. Hey, remember the last time Ben Simmons hit a 3? It was preseason, and the internet almost shut down. Twitter might shut down if he hits 2 threes in the first quarter, or hits a
Gotcha.
3 in crunch time.
Gotcha.
I mean, we
But
don't. Ben Simmons might come back with this big chip on his shoulder to prove everybody that he's not some bum that people make him
so
out to be.
I want to stop you for 1 second, because with Kyrie on the floor, along with Kevin Durant, who is, when he's not injured, I would say, what, best player in the NBA,
I mean, he
arguably,
he arguably the best, not in the NBA, but the best player in the world.
in the world. Okay, okay. So when Kyrie and Ben Simmons are on the floor, I'm guessing this suits Ben Simmons fine, because he will be the pure point guard,
Yep, he'll be the
and
facilitator
and and
offense.
and and, and Kyrie shifts over to shooting guard or off guard.
It's the kind of the same situation when James Harden was on the court. That Ben will be the facilitator, Kyrie plays off ball, and then Ben takes the best defensive assignment on the other end of the court. So he's not going to be guarding point guards, he's guarding the best player on the other side of the court.
So how much realistically would they need in points for this to be a success? Would he need like 12 points a game,
I think
10 assists?
if Ben can give you the 16, 8, and 8 he gave with 2 steals that he gave you in Brooklyn, Philadelphia, I think it's well warranted because what's going to happen is going to be so many open shots for the Nets shooters, and they have plenty of them. Ted. They have plenty of shooters now. The Nets can score the basketball. Can you imagine how many open looks Kevin Durant's going to have because Ben Simmons is either going to drive on you or dunk on you in the play in the paint?
Right, right.
Oh yeah, quick news flash: James Harden will be wearing number 1 in Philadelphia.
Go beat House. Yes, we are live.
So that's what we're looking at with the Sixers. So if I look at a grade, because I gave the Sixers a grade, I will say the Nets grade. Actually, I think it's an A minus. Listen, it might not be the move that's going to win you a championship this year, depending on Kyrie Irving. But remember, we saw Kevin Durant almost lead them to the finals last year, the conference finals last year, by himself in Game 7. So I think at the end of the day, Ben Simmons being on the court defensively can take away just as many points as people who put up points in the playoff series. And Ted, I will say this: the NBA gave us all this drama. Can we just have Nets and Sixers in the first round of the playoffs?
You want it in first round and not the what's the name? Eastern Conference Finals?
No, because I think the best team in the Eastern I think the best team in the Eastern Conference is not Brooklyn and not Philadelphia at the current moment. The best team in the Eastern Conference to me is the Miami Heat.
What? And not the Bucks?
Ted, is something about the Heat this year with Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler being healthy, Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo being healthy, Tyler Hero shooting at an insane rate, Duncan Robinson, the play of Gabe Vincent, Strauss, the shooting of Caleb Martin, year 7, Dwayne Dedmon. I just like this team somehow. There's something about them. Now, mind you, the Bucks went and got Serge Ibaka today. And Ted, if Ibaka is actually worth something, his addition could be just as important as PJ Tucker's addition was to the Bucks last year.
Okay.
And I think Miami's the only team, even with this trade today, that can play Miami in the series and beat play Milwaukee in the series and beat them because Jimmy Butler is just that much of a dog.
Okay.
But
Okay.
now, Ted,
Hey, one shift.
if Kyrie Irving's a full-time employee, I'm picking the Nets to win the East.
I'm just going to say this much: the newly minted mayor is also the former Brooklyn Borough president.
The pressure's going to get heavy on Mr. Adams pretty soon. That's all I'm
Yeah,
going to say.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Want to shift gears really quick before we even talk about, if we want to talk about the All-Star draft. How's the family doing?
Family's good. It's coming up on the 1 year anniversary of me being married. Wow, how fast this year has
How
gone.
is that? Congratulations again.
Appreciate that. It's just been fast. It's like, you go from like you're dating, courting, and getting engaged and getting married all in COVID. It's just it's another show for a different day, but life is beautiful. Can't complain. Just taking it one day at a time and enjoying it.
Okay. And your little girl, who's not so
Growing,
little anymore.
growing. She was at the lighthouse yesterday down in Florida and scared to death of heights. So she started to pick up habits like her pops. So can't complain. Family's good. Working in the same field as Mr. Hicks and on the day job front in the IT world is another story as well too. But
Everyday
I'm glad
struggle.
basketball exists.
Everyday struggle. I'm telling you.
The everyday struggle, yes.
You're the little engine that could, and at the end of the week, really on paydays where you say, okay, you know what, it was worth it.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I still question my paychecks, but my
So
employer might be watching. Who knows?
right, come on, let's keep it clean. Let's keep
You
it
know,
clean. So let's yeah, we can delve into the NBA draft a little bit because you can see the chicanery going on tonight with Ernie, Chuck, Shaq, Kenny, and LeBron and Kevin Durant.
I mean, Ted, it was the television we didn't need that we really did need. The All Star draft was tonight, and LeBron and Kevin Durant were captains, and Ted, to be honest with you, LeBron's forward, he's undefeated. He's been a captain every year of the All Star game, and ever since this captain format's happened, he's never lost. He's going against Kevin Durant, who's not playing in the game, and he lost last year. And it was, you knew the picks were coming. Giannis was first, so LeBron with Giannis, him, and Jokic are the first two picks, and it's kind of an unfair advantage for Kevin Durant because he's not playing in the game, and he ended up with the last two picks of the starters, which ended up being Andrew Wiggins and Trae Young. So his lineup looks like Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, along with Wiggins and Trae Young, and it's going to be a different type of All-Star game. And Steph Curry, it's going to be an interesting matchup because, like I said, LeBron ended up with getting I'm sorry, Durant took Ja Morant. Excuse me. So it's Ja Morant, Trae Young, and then the set of forwards. LeBron has Curry and DeRozan in the
Gotcha.
backcourt with himself, Giannis, and Jokic in the front court. So he has a lot of firepower in the front court. But the real story was in the reserve pool, with everything going on with the trade and how LeBron and KD were just going back and forth on who was going to take James Harden in the draft. And it was pretty obvious that Kevin Durant was not the happiest guy with this trade. So as they were going back and forth, I think the funniest moment was LeBron taking Fred VanVleet, which left the last round beating Rudy Gobert and James Harden, with Harden deciding, since he already had Karl Anthony Towns on his roster and Joel Embiid saying the statement of, "I needed more height." So he took Rudy Gobert before James Harden.
More height, more muscle, um, and somewhere in the clog up the middle, clog up the lane a little bit. I guess I
In
don't
the
know.
All-Star game, of all things, the All-Star game.
Right, where not a lick of defense gets played until
No.
the last six
James
minutes.
Harden should have been the third or fourth player taken, but um, just watching LeBron's face and his facial expressions as he has to hide himself because he's too busy not trying to laugh, and Charles Barkley just putting fuel to the fire, on the whole
Yeah,
Kevin Durant situation. But yeah, it was the James Harden Kevin Durant situation. But you can tell, there is a little bit of not happiness
salt,
between Kevin Durant's
salt,
expression.
salt is what it is.
I think it's more. It's not even just salt. I think it's much more of him being upset. I think Ted. If you look back at the trio, Ted, they played 16 games together.
Right.
They didn't get, and there was talk that Kyrie and Harden didn't see eye to eye. But 16 games in 2 years is not enough to sit here and say this isn't going to work.
True.
It wasn't a long
True.
enough time, and James wasn't happy. Now the question is, what happens in Philly? Is he going to be happy in Philly over the next year and a half? We don't know.
Um, he's axed out of two teams in the last two seasons.
And that's why he was scared to quote unquote ask for another trade, because he didn't want his public image to be damaged. But at this point in time, it's been damaged because of the pursuit of Daryl Morey, who should be fined for all this tampering with a player who's on another roster in his division.
Um, yeah, that's questionable. I mean, I don't understand Maury. I don't understand how the Knicks sit around and do nothing. For me, it's funny. I guess there's a little bit of just due on the Knicks end from seeing Porzingis traded yet again
I'm
from
not
the
sure.
Mavericks.
See, here's the thing. I'm not sure what Dallas was doing today. I'm not, because okay, I understand trading Kristaps Porzingis because him and Luka Doncic don't see eye to eye and haven't seen eye to eye for a while. The coach is now gone. Now Porzingis is gone, but Ted, the return on the investment was not good. You have Spencer Dinwiddie, who has been really bad for a good part of the year. He got that $20 million per season deal to go to Washington, and like a lot of the guys in that Wizards roster, just hasn't been good. And then Davis
Right.
Bertans, who signed an $85 million deal, and the Wizards fans couldn't wait to get him out of town. And Ted, you would think that, and also they're going to end up probably with Goran Dragic for the silver, but a team who was in the top six in the Eastern Conference, the Western Conference, literally just weakened themselves because they're going to need Porzingis down the stretch. Luka now has to deal with Spencer Dinwiddie and Jalen Brunson as his other scoring options, with no interior defense at all because Davis Bertans don't play defense. Okay, with Maverick fans, he don't play defense. And Spencer Dinwiddie, his shot was left when he got hurt in Brooklyn. We're not sure if it's even going to show back up in Dallas. It might get stuck in traffic or in the air. But Washington, on the other hand, this deal happened right after they traded Montrezl Harrell to Charlotte. So when you saw Montrezl Harrell get to Charlotte to get traded for Vernon Carey, Ish Smith, a pack of bubble gum, and a 2-for-1 coupon at local Bojangles, you know, for them to make that deal and then turn right back around and get Porzingis is kind of head scratching. Because, okay, are you trying to make the playoffs? Are you trying to keep a lottery pick? And now with Brad Beal taking the rest of the year off with his injury and choosing to recover, the Wizards are in a really, really sticky situation because Brad Beal is going to opt out of his deal, and Brad Beal can be received up to $256 million over the next 5 years. So the Wizards are in a really, really bad place right now because Beal didn't finish the year, and the Wizards haven't won a playoff series, Ted, since John Wall and Beal were together. Beal hasn't won as a solo artist. So Ted's like, it's like let's have a soul singer, who's dropping an album, and they've only had like one or two hits on the album, and you're wondering, well, what's the rest of the album sound like? It's
Right.
been blah.
Hey, so I got a question for you. Also in Gotham City, what is Worldwide West and Leon Rose Tibbs thinking about? Number one, why did they give Randall that $117 million deal after what he did in the playoffs?
Because they didn't look at the playoffs. They looked at the 82 games of the regular season when Julius Randle was second team All NBA, and he played the power forward position and brought fire back to the city the same way Amari Stoudemire brought fire back to the Knicks when he showed up in New York. He embraced the city. He loved the pressure. Maybe it's because the Knicks, like a lot of teams, didn't have full fans the whole season. So, he didn't have to deal with the New York pressure of the crowd on a nightly basis. The one thing about New York is when you win and you show that you can win, they're expecting you to win. Now,
Right.
another part of the key factor is what's going on with Tom Thibodeau. The other night, the Knicks are getting blown out, and RJ Barrett gets hurt in the final seconds of the St. Louis Nuggets because Thibodeau thinks they can come back being down 15 with 50 seconds to go in the game. One thing with Tom Thibodeau, like he's done at every location, Ted, is after a while, it's great in the beginning, but it
He wears
wears
him
thin
down
very
to a
well.
nub.
Here's
He
another thing: the
wears his
Knicks had traded for Cam Reddish, and they believe
right.
Cam Reddish is supposed to be a key part of the future. But I think he's only played 27 minutes since he's been there.
Tibbs wears his players down to a nub.
Yeah,
Period.
I mean Ted. I
Um,
mean he had trade value earlier for Alec Burks. They had some with
yes,
Kemba Walker, and he's basically torpedoed all of their.
all of them. All of them.
Ted, they could have got something for Alec Burks. They could have got some from Kemba Walker. They could have got some for Evan Fournier. But all their values in the toilet, and now the Knicks. I think the Knicks will make a move in the summertime, Ted, because listen, they turned down overtures at the deadline. Julius Randle was a name that was being tossed around.
Right.
De'Aaron Fox was tossed to the Knicks at one point. The
I
Kings
saw that yesterday.
straight for Randle, straight up.
Right.
They were able to get Sabonis without having to give up Fox because they gave up Halliburton. So that was one deal off the table. Randle has value around the league, and I think the Knicks are still eyeing a guy down in New Orleans who just got CJ McCollum next summer, to team up with his buddy RJ Barrett, with his buddy Cam Reddish in New York. And if that's the case, then what do you do with Obi Toppin? What do you do with Emmanuel Quigley? Ted, to be honest with you, they should have turned the keys over to Emmanuel Quigley a long time ago. Miles McBride, who's really played well when he's given the opportunity. But I will say this: I don't expect to see Kemba Walker as a Knick much longer. I think he will
No.
get bought out.
Yes.
Now it's on Kemba where he goes. Is he going to be a Laker? Is he going to be a Hornet because they got rid of their backup point guard?
Mm.
Is he going to be a member? I don't know, of the Miami Heat. There are teams that can use a point guard like Kemba Walker, a guy that can come in and give you 12 to 15, 17 minutes a night, as long as Kemba's mindset is, I'm a reserve, not a starter.
How smart does the Charlotte front office, aka MJ, look not making that max contract offer to Kemba Walker?
I think Ted, the thing that is, it's a 30-year-old guy that has a lot of mileage and has had issues with injuries. So it was a smart move. Charlotte's going to have to think about the same situation this summer with Miles Bridges. The only difference is Miles is 23, 24 years old. And do the Hornets pay a Rich Paul asking price to keep him in Charlotte? So I don't know if it's exactly a grade A move for Charlotte to get Montrezl Harrell, which I love the move, because the roster is already imbalanced in the first place. The roster is not a top 6 in the Eastern Conference roster. But I love the fit of Harrell, even though he doesn't protect the rim.
Hey, I know we're running short on time. Honorable mention to no DH or universal DH in Major League Baseball
Like, why are we doing this? Just let the pitchers hit. Pitchers can hit long balls. Why do we need a universal DH at this point? I mean, now my
because we
MLB The
need a
Show season is
place
ruined.
for Robinson Cano to play every day so he can be that professional hitter that he is. Yes, I'm just totally being a homer for the Mets. Okay.
Listen, we're both homers for the Mets.
Yes. I don't want to get into Brian Flores with you right now because we got time constraints, but it's oh, what a tangle web we weave. I don't think we see this case until late fall, going into the winter months.
I will say this: as courageous as Brian Flores has been, I mean, tremendously courageous. I will tell you, if you have a chance, that I don't know if you see this, the clip from Jim Trotter yesterday at the
Yes.
State of the NFL. For
Yes.
those who have not seen it, if you thought what Brian Flores did was honorable and it's a turning point, listen to the question of Jim Trotter, because Jim Trotter works in the NFL. He writes.
He
Not,
works
he
for
doesn't write on the
NFL
NFL.
Network.
He works for the actual NFL. For him to take the time to ask that type of question, and for Goodell's response to be so
Vague.
completely lost, tells you the state of the NFL at this current moment. Kudos to Jim Trotter.
Hang on 1 second. I got to put this up here.
The Cowboys, the Falcons, the Giants, the Jaguars. In your initial statement, the league's initial statement, it said that diversity, equity, and inclusion were core principles of the NFL. And I need to provide some context before I can ask you about that statement. In the 100 plus year history of this league, 24 of 32 franchises have either had one black head coach or no black head coaches. And to make sure I get the names right, I'll read them off here. We've got the Bills, the Commanders, the Cowboys, the Falcons, the Giants.
So I'm assuming that's the end of the show here for Late Night Parents tonight. Ways to catch the show, as you see on the bottom, you can follow myself, Ted, and Late Night Parents all on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Danny3Thompson on Twitter. Listen to my show, watch my show, which is Sports Insight 757 with Jay Lee Saturdays on Facebook Live through the 96.5 Sports Radio page here in Norfolk, Virginia. I am one of the co-hosts of the show and social media manager, so also follow the page itself. And like I said, for Ted and myself, you guys have a wonderful evening. Stay safe out there. Peace.
If I had the answer right now, I would give it to you. I would have implemented. I think what we have to do is just continue and find and look and step back and say, we're not doing a good enough job here. We need to find better solutions and better outcomes. And so let's find more effective policies. Let's make sure everyone
If I had the answer
let's
right
make
now,
sure that we're looking at diversity and actually incentivizing that for everybody in our building, including with compensation. Let's make sure that when we're dealing with vendors outside the building, we're hiring diverse vendors and bringing them in and giving them an opportunity to succeed just like we do with white vendors or people of color. Well, how can they come in and contribute to the NFL? So I think it's not a single answer, Jim. The single responsibility comes on all of us in the NFL, and we have to be the ones that make that change. And we are the ones that have to make sure we bring diversity deeper into our NFL and make the NFL an inclusive and diverse organization that allows everyone the opportunity to be successful. Yes, Jim.
I think that says it all. I think I lost Danny Thompson in the midst of everything, but we are at. Oh, Danny Thompson is back. Danny, I think I got happy when I was shifting around and sharing that. But did you get the gist of what was being said and
Oh yeah,
how Roger Goodell was just dancing and how Jim Trotter, to me, Jim Trotter has just went through the roof.
No, I mean I listened to it 4-5 times yesterday. And the courage it took to say that type of question, people understand in the field of journalism. it's hard to ask those hard hitting questions, especially of people of your employer, and then on top of that, being a black man in the United States, you just can't. Those questions normally you just don't ask, or you just don't take that. You don't take that risk and ask that question. So for Jim to do it, it's like it couldn't have been a better person to ask the question. He couldn't have phrased it any better, and couldn't have gotten it said any better. Roger Goodell's response to me is the reason why the NFL is where it is right now. He didn't have an answer, even though they had the coalition to be able to look into more for African Americans in the NFL. It has failed. The system that, quote unquote, him and Jay-Z and all those other guys put together a few years ago just seems like it's one big joke at this point. What have we gotten? We've gotten a couple of halftime Super Bowl performances that were amazing. Great. But like Jim brought so many points in this. We don't have a black majority owner in the NFL. We don't have one of those.
No.
We've only have one team president that's black. There are half the league, Ted, that has never had a black head coach. If you go into the NFL front office, only 2 people of the top 11 people are people of color. Right. You go into the newsroom, and there's not one African American in the decision-making roles of a league that has 70% of its players that are African American.
Right.
It really feeds into the thought process of African American players and African American people are good to be the brunt of it, to be the help, or they're meant to be the persons that are not in the limelight, but they're the ones taking the physical damage. They're the ones getting CTE, but they're not the ones making the physical decisions. No, I mean, Louis Riddick finally got interviewed to be a GM in Pittsburgh. Let's see how this turns out. He should have been a GM 5 years ago.
But I want to take a quick time out. Riddick and the Steelers, it seems like it just meshes so well because the Steelers are the Steelers.
But Ted, I mean, they created the Rooney Rule, Ted. But even if that's the case, Ted, Pittsburgh has been the outlier, Ted. They've been the leaders in this. So for them to hire Louis Riddick, if that's the case, Ted, that's just Pittsburgh being Pittsburgh.
Correct.
And that's something you expect from the Rooney family.
That's but Ted, something you expect from them.
You have 31 other owners, Ted. 31 other owners.
You got 31 other billionaires, Danny, who they love their toys. And you put this rule in place so that the person can get to the table. It doesn't say the rule is flawed. Yes.
Superly.
Okay. But it allows them to get to the table. These billionaires, you're not going to tell these billionaires what to do.
No.
Come on.
Ted, like I said, Ted, I think the first change, Ted, is when when African Americans finally get a full-fledged majority owner of a team.
Right.
Now, the Denver
Broncos. I'm hearing there's like 2 owners potential. I'm not even talking about Byron Allen. I'm talking about there's someone in Denver who's a Denver native who's been mentioned in one of the 3 groups.
Okay.
For the Broncos. Who's to say after all of this, something doesn't happen with Miami where they have to give up the team? Who's to say?
If Miami goes up for sale, Ted, do you know how many people will be in line? The line will be going down Biscayne Boulevard trying to buy
the Miami Dolphins? Come on.
Yeah, I mean Josh Harris, Alex Gores, are in the billionaire group that wants the team.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be surprised if Jeff Bezos didn't decide to jump in it now that's officially on the market.
And there's always been rumbling about Daniel Snyder and the Commanders.
Ted, the thing is, the NFL is going to have to the same thing with Stephen Ross. The NFL is going to have to get Snyder out of there.
Yes,
they're going to have to force it. So,
agreed.
I mean, Harris is a minority over the Pittsburgh Steelers, who's basically one of the folks that want to buy the Broncos. And I mean, Ted, the evaluation's at $4 billion.
Yes, is that $4 billion?
So, like I said, Byron Allen is the one. Yeah, he says he's trying to make a bid. And the Allen Group can pay $3 to $4 billion.
Mm-hmm. with him being the majority,
Mm-hmm.
being the majority owner. All right. Danny, we are at the 40-minute mark. We are in overtime. I want to thank you for coming through. I at the Chiron, we have ways to follow. Danny3Thompson. You can find him on Twitter.
Yep.
Danny, tell us some of the other things that you're doing.
I host a show called Sports Insight 757 with Jay Lee on Saturdays from 9 to 11 in the morning on Sports Radio 96.5, 8:50 a.m. Out here
Eastern
in Norfolk,
time.
Eastern time, out here in Norfolk, Virginia. If you're not in the local area, I understand. You can always download the Sports Radio 850 96.5 app in the Google Play Store or the Apple iTunes Store. Tune in. Like I said, every Saturday we take questions. We have live guests on the show from all across. We talk all sports in general. We're the local feel. I said I am the social media manager for the actual radio station, so a lot of the posts that you see on social media come from myself. We want to keep our fans engaged, and you never know where I might pop up here and there. I'll pop up a podcast here, I'll pop up a podcast there, I'll pop an article here and there. Just enjoying the writer part of free agency right now. I'm being as an official writing free agent, I'm enjoying the free agency part of this.
Gotcha. Is there before we end this stream? Is there any breaking news or anything that you want to drop here that might be exclusive?
Ted, this week, Ted, I mean, I know you're trying to get a Super Bowl pick out of me. I will say this. As of this taping right now, it's 9:42 Eastern time on Thursday night. If you put a gun to my head and said what team is going to win the Super Bowl, I'm going to tell you right now that it's going to be the LA Rams.
And who would be the MVP?
Aaron Donald. I think Aaron Donald will finally get his moment. I think he will be in Joe Burrow's face. I think he'll make a huge play or two. And I think, Ted, it'll be the dominating performance that when it's all said and done, we're going to say, when you say the names, Reggie White, Lawrence Taylor, Aaron Donald, that's going to be the three. We talk about the three most destructive defensive players in the history of the NFL. Aaron Donald's name is going to be mentioned with the Reggie White and the Lawrence Taylor as most disruptive. And I think this is going to be Aaron. It's going to be Aaron Donald's moment. I would say the dark horse is Odell Beckham.
Odell Beckham Jr.
Yep, and his dad will win Father of the Year for getting him out of Cleveland.
This is like the redemption arc for Odell because we loved him with the Giants, not so much with the Browns.
Well, I mean, I think his Browns legacy will be hit and miss. I think it will always be hit and miss. For whatever reason. You love him, you hate him. He's always polarizing. Let's see. Breaking news from Sean Marks. When asked about the James Harden deal, Mark said that the decision to trade James was difficult. However, after recent discussions with him and his representatives, we felt like this move we needed for all parties involved. So he forced the trade. And Harden is wearing number 1 because Wilt Chamberlain's 13 is retired.
Got it.
And lastly, for the Lakers fans who wonder what happened with Russell Westbrook, because you mentioned Russell Westbrook's name in the end, the Westbrook-John Wall trade was shot down because the Lakers did not want to give up a 2027 first-round pick, which is the only pick the Lakers have in control because of the Anthony Davis trade that basically the Pelicans own as many first-round picks as or control all the first-round picks of the Lakers until, Ted, your son goes to college.
Yo, Danny, as always, thank you for coming through. Thank you for spending a strong 45 minutes with us.
Always.
We know we had a little bit of technical difficulty, but I had to get that Jim Trotta clip up there.
Listen, Jim Trotta,
and Yes. Jim Trotter and the late great C.S. Keys were very good friends. That's how I got introduced.
C.S. Keys, rest in peace. What a good guy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Danny, thank you once again. Look forward to seeing you once again. Big shout out to StreamYard and everyone else that supports the show. We're out.
Peace.